So recently, The Hollywood Reporter published an article where they sat down and talked to all the big studio execs from the big 7 studios out there currently pretty much ruling Hollywood. And Spider-Man was brought up directly to Sony and Disney, and they discuss it and the scenario they're in, so let's get to that. Okay guys, so this is the article I was talking about. It's at the Hollywood Reporter. You guys can check it out. I will have it obviously linked down below for you guys. But it is an extensive read, and obviously as it says right here, all 7 top film executives. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. The important one here is Alan Horn. We talk about him on the channel plenty because Disney, and of course Sony's Tom Rothman, and God knows we talk about him here a lot. But if you really want to see what we're talking about here, I'm gonna jump down to this section right here. This is the important one. So there's some stuff here where they talk about, let's say, Spider-Man, for example. So starting right here, and this is really important. Would you trade the Spider-Man property for every Leonardo DiCaprio for the rest of his career or after? And you can see this is actually all the studio execs kind of talking to one another. Now, here's the big one, right? It's Rothman kind of talking a little bit about IPs and everything. And then it's brought up to Alan Horn and Tom Rothman. You recently had a little dispute over Spider-Man. And they obviously right here that, they ask him what kind of resolved this, and what's happening and the resolve and the standoff, and Marvel producing the next Sony investment. Obviously the stuff they want to know because this is a sit down with the industry. So Alan Horn talks about this, and he says the fan base. Okay, so that's interesting, right? And they talk a little bit more about it here. Like I said, you can read the entire thing, but the essence of this is the fan base, which is important to us, seem to really respond to what Tom and his folks have done with our people. Again, people like us talking about how we want Spider-Man in the MCU. They like the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Kevin Feige were involved in the 2 Spider-Man films. We heard feedback, again, complaining, I guess gets it done, because we know they do listen. And, like it says right there, suggested that joining forces once again was probably a really good idea. So again, they felt the pressure. And then the question is asked, will this partnership continue after the trilogy? Tom, you've shown you can do Spider-Man without Marvel. Again, that's an important question to ask, right? So, Rothman says, yes, we have, but I agree, and he agrees with Alan Horn. This was a classic win-win-win. A win for Sony, a win for Disney, and a win for the fans. The only thing I would say is the news cycle and the rhythm of negotiations do not necessarily overlap. And this is, in the words of Shakespeare. Okay, so, they talk about it a little bit here, and Alan Horn agrees with what he's saying. Now, the important thing you have to know here is, as they say, it's a win-win-win. And again, it's the feedback of the fan base. This is the important one here, right? As long as we're vocal, and as long as we're not, certain other fan bases that are like threatening and very disrespectful, and we're not doing any of that. We were just like, look, this is stupid. You can't just end his story after setting up so many pieces. They heard us and they got back to the drawing table, and and they came up with a new plan. It's a win-win-win for everybody because Sony gets to stay in the MCU and pretend their movies are directly connected. And again, like he says, we don't know all the details, but who knows what else they might have talked about and figured out. So there's some interesting stuff here that you should really look at and take into consideration with the future of Spider-Man. Because again, if they pull him out of the MCU entirely, the fan base will be vocal.